This video is going to be talking about the unifications of two very important nation states in Europe that's going to be taking place towards the end of the 1800s. We are going to be speaking about the unifications of Italy first, and then moving on to speak about the unification of the Germanic states into what we know as Germany. Following the Congress of Vienna, the meeting of the major powers of Europe, breaking up Napoleon's empire, what's going to happen is Italy is going to end up being fragmented into states of various sizes that you can see in this map here. And what's going to happen is for the next 35 years, this is more or less the way things are going to be set up in Italy, right? With the various different kingdoms, and each are going to have kind of their own ruler. And fast forwarding a bit to around the year 1850, Austria was still really one of the main dominant powers in Europe, but also even on the Italian peninsula. And following the revolutions of 1848, what's going to happen is the people of northern Italy, in particular in the Italian state, the Piedmont, which you can see there up in the northwest, they're going to be really looking for some sort of leadership to unify the Italian state. And the royal house of Savoy ruled the kingdom of the Piedmont. And in the Piedmont, you can kind of see the island of Sardinia, Nice, and then Savoy. The ruler of the kingdom of the Piedmont was a man named King Victor Emmanuel II around the year 1850. And Victor Emmanuel is going to name a man named Count Cavour, Camillo di Cavour, as his prime minister in 1852. And as prime minister, Cavour is going to kind of pursue a policy of economic growth in order to equip a large army. However, Cavour really kind of knew that the Piedmont's army was not really strong enough or ready to pick a fight with the Austrians and win. So what Cavour is going to do is he ends up kind of making an alliance with the French at the time under the French emperor, a man named Louis Napoleon. And with this new alliance, what's going to happen now is Cavour is going to feel comfortable provoking the Austrians into declaring war in 1859. Following a successful conflict here now when allied with the French, the peace settlement is going to give some of this land to the French. It's going to give kind of Nice and Savoy to the French. However, what's going to now happen is other areas of northern Italy, which had been under Austrian control, is going to be given to the Kingdom of the Piedmont. And that's going to be a fairly important thing, because what's going to happen now is Cavour's success is going to cause other nationalists in the other Italian states, in particular in the north, to kind of see this as a success and be convinced that this unification might be possible. And what's going to happen in the Italian states of Parma, Modena, and Tuscany, these nationalists are going to kind of overthrow their governments and join their state to the Piedmont to create a unified northern Italy. Meanwhile, in southern Italy, a new Italian leader had arisen, a man named Giuseppe Garibaldi, who had managed to raise an army of 1,000 or so volunteers and take that army to the island of Sicily off of the coast of southern Italy, and it was able to use this army to gain control of the island by the end of July 1860. And what's going to happen is, following that success, Garibaldi's forces are going to cross over to the mainland and begin this kind of victorious march up the Italian peninsula. And at this point, the entire kingdom of Sicily, the two different Sicilies that existed, are going to fall to Garibaldi in September. And at this point, what's going to happen is Garibaldi is going to choose to turn over these conquests to the kingdom of the Piedmont that had unified northern Italy. And in March 1861, we will have a mostly unified Italy being proclaimed under the King Victor Emmanuel II that we had just spoken about the unification of northern Italy. And at this point, the unification was really not yet complete. Austria still is gonna hold Venetia up in the north, and then Rome was still under the control of the Pope and supported by French troops at this point. The final pieces of this puzzle are going to come together when the Italians are going to gain control of Venetia as the result of supporting Prussia in a war between Austria and Prussia, known as the 7 Weeks' War in 1866. Additionally, following that in 1870, during the Franco-Prussian War, which we're going to be speaking more about during our section on German unification, the French troops had to withdraw from Rome that had been stationed there to kind of help defend France from Germany. And what's going to happen now is that their withdrawal is going to enable the Italian army to annex and take control of Rome in September 1870. And at this point, the entire Italian peninsula will be unified under the King Victor Emmanuel, and Rome is going to become the capital of the new European Italian state. This next section is going to be speaking about the unification of Germany and the Germanic states. So let's talk about some introduction to this topic and some context, right? So if you remember, Napoleon had abolished the Holy Roman Empire and had reorganized the many German states into what he called and what became known as the Confederation of the Rhine. Prussia and Austria at this point were the leading German states, but really Austria was also encompassed many non-German lands and people as well. It was a bit more diverse. Prussia, however, wanted unity, but Austria really didn't, because it really wasn't able to bring those non-German territories and that diversity into Germany. Here you can see a map of what kind of modern-day Central Europe looks like. Some more context about Prussia was that it was organized into German states, into what was a customs union, really an economic confederation at the time. And what's going to happen is a man named Otto von Bismarck is going to become the prime minister of Prussia and eventually chancellor, and he is going to follow a policy that kind of becomes known as blood and iron to unite Germany. Prussia is going to achieve unification through Prussia's economic and military power at the time, and it's going to really take advantage of new technologies, some new rifle technologies, as well as increased railroad power and capacity that's going to exist throughout Prussia. And these things together are going to help Prussia build one of the most powerful armies in Europe at the time. So the king of Prussia at this point is a man named William I, other words Wilhelm I, and he is going to become king or Kaiser of Prussia in 1861. So von Bismarck, he is going to be appointed to the head, the Prussian cabinet by Kaiser Wilhelm I in 1862. And what's going to happen is he is really not going to accept the actions of the legislature, the parliament. He's going to kind of oppose these democratic actions and just going to begin this kind of militaristic endeavors on his own without their permission. And he's going to build the Prussian army into a very formidable force, into really a war machine, a great war machine. And one of the big things that von Bismarck is kind of known for is being a practitioner of this concept known as realpolitik, which is known for as the politics of reality, which is politics based on practical matters rather than on ethics instead. It's this important situation that's going to exist in Central Europe at this time at the unification of Germany. As far as the unification process, Bismarck is going to orchestrate three separate wars, the first being the Danish War. After defeating Denmark with help from Austria in 1864, Prussia is going to take control of areas that had been Danish, the duchies of Schleswig and Holstein. And then following this success, Bismarck is actually going to then goad Austria into another war known as the 7 Weeks' War. And the Austrians kind of proved no match for the well-disciplined Prussian army. They are going to be defeated here, right? So now Prussia has organized the German states north into this North German Confederation, but there still was the southern German states, which were largely Catholic and feared a Protestant Prussia. The thing is they also feared France, their western neighbor, and as a result now, southern Germany agreed to sign military alliances with Prussia, who had been now in control of northern German Confederation, and you're going to have a largely unified Germany that's going to come out of this. So bringing this all together now, what's going to happen is in 1870, Prussia and France are going to kind of come to dispute over the candidacy of a relative of the Prussian king for the throne of Spain. And what's going to now happen is with this situation, Bismarck is going to push France into declaring war on Prussia in July of 1870. And this conflict that's going to come out of this kind of question of succession in Spain is going to become known as the Franco-Prussian War. So Prussian armies advanced into France, and they are going to capture the French army as well as the French ruler, a man named Napoleon III. Paris is going to surrender, and at the end of this success for the Prussians, there's going to be an official peace treaty that's going to be signed that France is going to have to pay a large sum of money, about 5 billion francs, to the Germans, and they are also going to have to give up the provinces of Alsace and Lorraine to the new German state. The loss of these territories left France kind of burning for revenge, and you're going to see conflict come out of these territories over the next several decades as we enter World War I and even World War II. But before the war had even ended, that southern German states that we had just spoken about had agreed to kind of now enter this North German Confederation. And in January 1871, Bismarck and the 600 different German princes, nobles, and generals are going to kind of fill the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles. And Wilhelm I is going to be proclaimed Kaiser, or Emperor, of the Second German Empire. So what's going to happen now is the Prussian monarchy and the Prussian army had officially achieved German unity. And while authoritarian and militaristic, the values of Prussia were triumphant here to create this new German state. And at that point also, its industrial resources and military might, Germany is kind of really going to be perhaps the strongest power in Europe as a result. So just to recap, on January 18th, 1871, a proclamation is going to be issued that declared the formation of the German Empire. The empire included all of the German states except Austria, and Berlin now is going to become the capital of the new empire as well. And following the death of his father, Wilhelm I, William II, or Wilhelm II, is going to take the throne, and he is going to set out to expand Germany's colonial empire, which we'll be speaking about in a later unit when we talk about the European colonization in Africa and Asia. But Wilhelm II is going to bring Germany into competition, in particularly with the Great Britain and their navy and military. So by the 1900s, Germany is going to really emerge as a strong major player in Europe, with England perhaps being its major competitor. And this is kind of a precursor to the tension that's going to exist between these countries leading into World War I. So for now, that concludes our video on Italian and German unification. Okay, thank you.